relationship.
We're good?
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wenatchee City Council meeting. It is Thursday, August 12th, 2021. Time for the regular meeting of the Wenatchee City Council. We always start with the pledge to our flag. So Councilmember Harold, I guess you're the one today.
I would be honored.
Thank you.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Harold. First item on tonight's agenda would be the consent items, which would be the approval of the agenda vouchers and the minutes from the previous meetings. I'd entertain a motion if we had one.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve agenda, vouchers, and minutes from previous meetings.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Bailey to adopt this evening's consent items, including the agenda vouchers and the minutes from our previous meetings. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda tonight are our City of Wenatchee Service Awards. Nice to see so many of our City of Wenatchee employees and family in the room tonight. So Carrie and team, come on up, and I'll come up and join you. And Caitlin, you going to help us up here? All right.
You're going to sit right here.
Yeah, I can just sit right here, except for the picture. So, well, good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, I'm Carrie Page. I'm the Director of Human Resources. And I'm really excited to be here tonight because this is our first service awards in over a year that have been brought to Council. So we're really happy to be back. These employees deserve your acknowledgement and recognition, and I'm excited to have everyone here today, and we even have some family members here to share in the excitement. So I'm going to start with our employees that have reached 5-year milestones, and I'm going to call them up. We've had 4 RSVPs that'll be here tonight. Your list is larger than that, but I'll call up the 4 that are here. And Mr. Mayor, if we could have you stand in front of the council, we're going to do a photo opportunity after you shake and, you know, hold babies. And so I'd like to call up first Officer Caleb O'Mell. And and then the next is from our Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services Department, our Administrative Assistant Extraordinaire, Cammie Coble. Yeah. Oh my gosh, she's gotten so good. And then our Public Works Senior Engineer for Utilities, Jeremy Hoover. Yeah. And then I'd also like to call up Officer Jared Shepard. And these are all of our 5-year. We'll go ahead and just form in front of the council there. And then Caitlin's going to take a picture. Perfect. All right. 1, 2.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, perfect. 1, 2. Great, we got 5 photos. Congratulations. Congratulations, everyone. Thank you. That's her birthday. Oh, it's whose birthday? Oh, so sweet. So moving on to our 15-year dedicated employees are from our finance department, our accounting technician, Nicole Carter. She is the one that puts out the paychecks for all of our employees. Very important person. Another VIP of ours is our police captain, Brian Chance.
Where's her? Good. Congratulations.
Yeah, we're going to get their logo, yeah.
I'm not going to lift you up either.
Maybe he'll lift you up.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Congratulations. Okay, we are moving into Apple status here. So for a very long and dedicated 20 years, we would like to invite Officer First Class Justin Kissel.
Congratulations. Thank you. 20 great years.
Into the mail, yeah, thank you.
That's a hunk of acrylic.
1, 2, 3. Great, thank you.
Congratulations. And 25 years of dedicated service to the city of Wenatchee. We invite Alyssa Clarity up. And Alyssa's with our Public Works Department. She's our fleet specialist.
There's more in the room. There's more than 25.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I can only imagine the hoops and hollers that are coming with this one because I know this department well, but with the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services Department, our Recreation Supervisor, Carol Andre, has served 30 years. With this
So Jose says you actually worked for you.
Oh, everybody has work for me.
So it's nothing special then.
Oh, great. I'm going to take a couple, just make sure we get. Great, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We good?
We're good. Thank you.
And thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for all the work through the city for all those years and through COVID and everything. So congratulations and thank you all. All right, so next on our agenda, and I didn't write it this way, it says citizens' comments except for skateboarding. I don't know how that got on the agenda that way, but, or maybe it's citizens' comment for everything, I don't know, so. Hi, guys, ladies, come on up.
I was just gonna speak a tiny bit and then
Okay.
video and then I'll speak and then.
Okay,
Just want to say thank you. The lights went on all night and it's been a huge decrease in unwanted people at the park and an increase in people of all ages at the park and parents who brought their kids and said that they had been scared previously. So it's been awesome. There's still, obviously it's going to take time, but it's a definite improvement. So
Good.
It's good. Yeah, the skate shop, Larry, that owns a skate shop, and just volunteer skaters put on a little skate camp for kids, and it's just 1 minute. If you
Oh,
want
cool.
to see
Yep.
how well the park's being used by a wide variety of people. Yeah.
wow, there's a lot of kids. That's cute.
Missing a few teeth.
Good job, Ellie. Turn your shoulder. Nice, bud.
So
Cool.
yeah, it was super cool, and all those kids they all progressed in just 3 hours, and he's doing another one on Sunday, and they're all excited to come back. So it's cool to see the park. It used to be like, in a creepy location, creepy people, but it's changing. So thank you. And we also have this growing group of clean and sober people from clean and sober houses, Oxford houses. Their skating has become their way of staying clean and sober. And so it's just extra important for us to protect them, that it's a safe place free of that kind of stuff that we saw before, the paraphernalia. So, the negative things that have happened just in the last 3 weeks, there's been, they took care of it, but spray paint stuff, that happened in daylight. One incident, people were there, they were younger kids, when they saw this older man go through and spray stuff, and they were able to get it off. It was on every sign, the bathroom, the pillars to the picnic shelter. So just to also, again, say it's the skaters that are cleaning it up and not the ones that are violating. I just want to know who, and this is probably not a city council issue, but I want to know, because we're there all the time, but we're noticing some things that could use some maintenance. The concrete is lifting in places because of maybe a broken sprinkler or overwatering or I don't know what. But so when we see things like that, where's the proper channel? Since we're there, I don't think.
Yeah, it'd be a parks maintenance department, so we'll get you a number where you can call and just if you notice something, that doesn't mean they're going to get to it right away, but eventually they would.
I just know that these things are going to be way more expensive down the road, but you can see concrete is lifting right there at the base of the ramp. Because of the water right there with the sprinkler.
Can I add?
Yeah.
It might be actually, the skate park builders. I don't know what I know each skate park has kind of like a warranty deal through it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it would be their deal to come back and they'd level it off and kind of, knock it down that edge.
Right.
And if it's the concrete or if it's, the sprinkler or water.
Yeah, we'll have our maintenance people take a look at it
Yeah,
and
it might be
they'll be able to look at the warranty and see if it's still in that area. Yeah.
One of the reasons we went with Grindline is because they're, they do come back and they do, honor their work. So.
Okay.
So the only last thing we wanted to say, we have hope that we can continue having a great relationship and also we've seen that it really works to bring positive people in and all those other people are leaving.
Right.
And so, future locations, if that's something that we can continue to kind of talk about and have you guys think about, the locomotive park is one that we thought would be a great spot because that's where those people hang out.
And the walking bridge, when you guys can.
Yeah. We thought it'd be convenient too when there's a bridge that connects.
Oh, okay.
And then the other thing, a very practical thing, we're wondering if there's any way to get access to plugins for the purpose of maintaining the park, pressure wash or leaf blower type of cleaning. After the skate camp, a lot of the kids were stepping through the mud and then on there, and just so we could clean it up.
Okay, so we'll get you in touch with the parks crew as well. Okay. I don't know if those plugins are locked because a lot of our visitors will try to pop them and rewire them and the vandalism we get at both Hale Park and Locomotive and others is pretty amazing from that group of people that we're talking about that just want to damage stuff. And so then we have to block stuff from people to get to them, and it ends up being this back and forth.
So truly the last thing, the problems that we have seen when we've been there, they're not at the park, but they're at the picnic shelter and the bathroom.
Right.
So when you mentioned the last time about the possibility of closing it, I think everybody's on board with that idea because it is hideous, stuff on the walls, and also people go in there and you can hear them. It's just really bad. So.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm glad the lights staying on later is working, and I think our police asked for them to be on all night, and I think we're leaving them on all night, and we'll see how that goes for a while.
I could add real quick too. The skateboarders down there, they're essentially self-policing the parks.
Right.
When we see stuff, we're calling, officers to come down and take care of it.
Good.
Try to get it, and I think it's really working. I mean, it's actually faster than what I thought would be.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how quickly it's changed.
Yeah. So.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for being here, and thanks for participating in local government. Let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else wish to address the council on something that's not on today's item? Yes, come on up.
Long-time listener, first-time
Yes.
caller. My name is Lael Gaston. Do you need my address? You do that? No one's nodding.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. I had two questions. I'll try and keep it brief. The first is I believe that the city used to have put out their communications in English and Spanish as well. And I feel like I noticed that I haven't seen the Spanish translations happening maybe in the last several months or so. And I don't know to what extent everything gets translated or not, but I was just wondering if that has a change that's happened, if it's
It has
scheduled to
changed.
resume.
We had a PIO that was bilingual. A lot of the stuff was getting translated. And then on the internet pages, we've gone to a Google Translate as opposed to a full translate, just because it was getting too cumbersome for us.
Gotcha.
So I don't know how much of the stuff, and Laura would know better about exactly what is getting translated and what is not.
We still translate most everything on our city Facebook. Parks translates
Yeah.
everything as well. So if there's a certain items or certain messages that aren't coming through, we do dual translation. We do know that Facebook translates, so Spanish users typically already see it in Spanish. And so if we translate it a second time, it's done twice.
Okay.
So we were trying to look at those types of things to make it efficient for the users that are looking at it. Our website does have the translate button now, so now it translates everything instead of just certain pieces, because before we had a separate website that only got updated in certain times. So I would say that the website is also fully translated now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. The other thing I was here about is another one of the trailer RV situations that I'm sure you're love to hear constantly, but I have a question about that. In my neighborhood, there was it's resolved at least for the moment, but at any time this could come about again. But there was a gentleman who had like a combo of vehicles that was parked about one property into the county, and it wasn't just that he was parked there, but he was one of those people that spreads out.
Yep.
And it was on the side of the street, the one side of the street that has a sidewalk. And as you know, I live in South Wenatchee, and it's a very high pedestrian area, and it was getting to be a pretty tense issue, and multiple calls to law enforcement to try and handle it. And it turns out is that they were unable to enforce anything because he was in the county, and they don't have any ordinances regarding sidewalks or pedestrian interference. And so I was wondering if it's possible to have a situation where the city and the county are kind of on the same page, and that the ordinances for sidewalk interference, which I know has been complicated in the past, could be enforced in the urban growth area. So,
So we have agreements with the county that they are required to adopt city zoning, all kinds of stuff inside the UGA, and they just refuse to do it.
Oh.
So you go to the county commissioner, you tell them you should adopt the city zoning in the UGA, you should adopt, right? But they refuse to do any of it. So we ask them all the time, and they just give us the blank stare.
Oh.
So it is not an irregular thing for us to ask them to do that.
Yeah. Okay, heard that response
Remember,
other times.
they're your elected officials just as we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult because when you make the calls and then the officers come out, and they're,
Yep.
of course, it's very helpful. By the way, I went to the National Night Out at Lincoln Rock,
Yep.
or Lincoln Park, and it was fantastic. I was there, and we had
Yep.
lots of kids, and they were thrilled. But sometimes officers always have a different, depending on who comes out, a different idea of what's able to be done and what's not
Yep.
able to be done. And, it's a tough spot to be kind of maintaining that neighborhood as it is
Yeah.
anyway.
So we understand the concern, and we deal with it all over the city in different
Okay.
spots. I would suggest you go to the county commissioners. They meet on Mondays and Tuesdays, almost all day, I think. But go to the county commissioner office and explain the situation to them, and ask them to adopt city
Okay.
laws inside the UGA that would help us and them,
Great.
right?
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Leo.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work, everyone.
You bet.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else wish to address the council on something that's not on today's agenda? Seeing no takers, we have a number of action items and one public hearing item. The first is regarding the County 09 funds and a grant to our Parks Department. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Dave Erickson, Parks and Recreation Director for the city. So last March, well, actually March of this year, we applied for a Chelan County Cascade Public Infrastructure Grant, .09 funds for a distressed county. And through the competitive grant process, we were awarded $115,200 for the Lincoln Park project. And so this evening, I'm here requesting that the city accept the grant, and so we can help pay for that project.
Quick update on the project, just sort of overall?
Not a ton new. We're ready, should be ready to go to bid for the main part of the construction at the end of this year, so
Okay.
October, November-ish. Pump Park, we are still working through some issues with Evergreen to try to get them out and get that portion completed.
And still not sure of the overall funding gap yet? That's
No.
still a...
Yeah, we think it's going to be about 800,000, but it will, construction prices are fluctuating so much with COVID and everything else that's going on right now. We're hoping that by bidding it in the wintertime, contractors will be a little bit less busy.
Okay.
And then constructing it next year, then our prices hopefully will come back down to a little bit more normal, so.
Okay.
We did, in our cost estimate for the project, we have included a pretty healthy contingency of 20% also.
Okay. Questions for David? Seems fairly routine. If none, I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I will move for City Council to accept the Public Infrastructure Fund grant from Chelan County in the amount of $115,200 for the Lincoln Park project and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Cuevas, to accept the Public Infrastructure Fund grant from Chelan County, the amount of $115,200 for the Lincoln Park project, and authorize the mayor's signature. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Jessica, professional services agreement. Do a little looky-see at the wastewater treatment plant.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jessica Shaw, Deputy Public Works Director, Utilities with Public Works. And yes, tonight I have before you a contract, public professional services agreement with Jacobs. This is for our wastewater treatment plant facilities plan amendment. So about every 5 years, we take a look at the treatment plant. We check out how we're doing capacity-wise. Do we need to do upgrades to keep up with the growth in the community? Right now, we decided that the focus of this amendment would be to look at aging equipment and infrastructure. We've had a lot of things sneak up on us, and we don't want to have that continue. So a big portion of this project will be looking at all of our equipment and assessing when it needs to be replaced and getting things on some good O&M timelines and help us better able to manage our budget. So the contract is for $227,400, and our proposed, the budget was $220,000. So did our best to try and come in as closely as possible. Another key part of this project is, as Dave mentioned, we've seen increasing construction costs, which have us a bit concerned as well. So we'll be looking at some of the projects that we have planned for the next 5 to 10 years and trying to figure out, do we have money budgeted for that? What do those projects look like? And, looking also for opportunities if projects can be moved out to help with funding. Are there any questions about the facilities amendment or the treatment plant?
I couldn't help but notice that the odor control was mentioned several times, and there is an issue with odor control right now with some kind of a sinkhole or something. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. We do have a one half of our odor control. The odor control is actually working very nicely. It's controlling odors very well like it's supposed to, but we have a sinkhole forming. And we're not sure exactly why. So staff is doing some investigation work. We haven't figured out what's gone wrong yet. That particular biofilter is also probably about halfway through its expected life before there's some maintenance work that needs to be done to replace the media so that it continues to function. So that's one of the things we're going to be having the consultant help us with is, we didn't really have on our radar because it's usually a 15 to 20 year maintenance cycle. So we want to make sure we're really doing a good job of documenting that these things need to be, budgeted for and changed out. So the consultant will be helping us to
see if we can resolve that issue in the best way possible. And then the other piece of it is when the odor control was done, it mostly addressed the north end of the plant, but there's no odor control on the south end of the plant. So the other piece of this planning effort is to look at, as the waterfront develops and more neighbors move in, how do we continue to be a good neighbor on the waterfront?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Jessica, I assume you're talking about, this is the underground filtration system that we were talking about here.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yep.
How deep is that buried under there? I mean, how difficult is that to get to?
It's about 8 feet.
Okay.
Probably the most challenging part is the aesthetics on top of it that we would have to carefully peel back to get to the media underneath. So those are all the things that we're considering in trying to resolve what the issues. I think we've looked at it every way we can with all of our cameras and other means. And so we're hoping consultants can help offer some other solutions short of digging it up. But that may be where we end up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Any other questions for Jessica? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Well, Your Honor, I'd make a motion for the City Council to approve the professional services agreement with Jacobs and authorize the mayor's signature.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Huffaker to approve the professional services agreement with Jacobs and authorize the mayor's signature. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica. So the next item on your agenda is amended and restated interlocal agreement between the Town Toyota Center, or the Public Facility District, and the City of Wenatchee. I'll sort of tee this one up a little bit for those of us that have been around long enough. Jim, Linda, Mark, I think Keith, a lot of us went through the Town Toyota Center issues, and we are not quite 10 years into our first round of bonding. So the Performing Arts Center, the Public Facility District, is refinancing its bonds. As you remember, back then, we had there's a 2/10 sales tax that we put on councilmatically. There was a 1/10 by the voters. And so all of that's just going well. Obviously, sales tax, as it's been growing for the city and the region, has been doing well for the Public Facility District as well. And so we've got a little bit of money in our reserve accounts, and we're 10 years through it, so it's time to refinance the bonds. So we're refinancing from a 5.5% rate to about a 3.5% rate. These will be taxable bonds, and there's reasons why we're doing that I won't really get into. The attorneys thought we should refresh this agreement for 2 or 3 things. I think one, some of you will remember the city had like a $200,000 backup pledge in case the sales tax did not come in. The city would agree to a $200,000 contribution. That's been removed from this agreement from the one that was signed 10 years ago because that's no longer needed. And then there was some stuff around the 2/10 and the 1/10, just repledging the 2/10 to the bondholders, new bondholders, because they want that. And then a little bit around, the 1/10 is really the PFD's money, and if they decide to do something with it, that would be something that they could decide. The 2/10 is still the city's money. It will most likely, these bonds will probably be paid off in 8 or 9 years. There'll be a small little issue in that they're not callable until 10 years, so there'll be a little bit of a time period where we'll probably have to collect the tax until we tell the Department of Revenue that we don't need it anymore. And then on the 033 stuff, just to refresh your memory, the 033, it can only be paid to the Public Facility District as long as there's debt. So there's a little bit of language in there that says if they wanted to in the future pledge that against something else, they could, and that we wouldn't object to that. So those are sort of the 3 major items in this agreement. It's been reviewed by the PFD's bond counsel, PFD's attorney, and Danielle has taken a look at it today. And there is a small little change in the agreement between the one that was in your packet and tonight's packet. So if someone could add the language, in substantially the same form, that would allow for a couple of the small changes. And I think we do have a red line version in here at some point that goes through a couple of the small little changes. And they did have to go back and it was interesting when we read this agreement, it was saying, and the city would do, and I said, and the city did all those. So when you read it, it was like, and the city had completed this and did complete that, and we did everything we said we were gonna do. So we've done everything that we said we would do, and, so, and this will be necessary for us to go to the bond market. So.
I'll be honest, the only thing that's bothering me about this a little bit is the allowance of the 3.3 to be used for other things instead of debt repayment.
So,
Yeah.
the 033, currently, the way we run our budget is the 2 and the 1 go into a separate bucket. Can only be used for debt service, and that's the way the 2 and the 1s were designed, and that can never be changed. The 033 is pledged to bondholders if needed. And if not needed, it accrues into an account, and at the end of the year, when all the bonds are paid, the money goes to the PFD to use for operational expenses. That's how we break even, right? Because you lose $500,000 in operations, you get $1.2 million in the 033. That's the only way the thing lives, right? It doesn't live without it. And this, under state law, you don't get the 033 unless there's debt. So think 8 years from now, and we say, oh, we have enough money to pay off all the debt, and we pay off all the debt. Then the 033 goes away, and now you got a building that's losing $500,000 a year and doesn't have the 033 to prop it up. So you will always have debt if you're going to get the 033 from the state. You have to have some form of debt. And the pledging for that debt will always be the 033. That's just the nature of the game. Whether that debt is a piece of leased equipment or something, but we will always have to have debt if we want the 033. And so it's sort of like the free money from the state. So again, I didn't write the laws. I'm just telling you, we're trying to work within them.
Is that the way it was written originally?
Yes, it's always been the way. So a lot of bigger PFDs, Keith, don't have a 1/10 or a 2/10.
Yeah.
And all they have is a whole bunch of 033, and they use that to go out and pledge and borrow to do capital improvements. And that ours is different because we obviously got off to a difficult start.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we will always have to have some debt if we're going to continue to collect that piece of the pie. And eventually, the pot will grow big enough that, you know, maybe we won't need the debt or won't need the 033, but in some manner, we'll have to adjust that sort of as we go. And the big picture for me is we took 30-year bonds and we'll be paying them off in probably 18 years. And don't say that's because we're some sort of miracle managers. It's because the economy in this region has done extraordinarily well. And the 1/10, quite frankly, comes from both counties. So it's getting stuff in Douglas County and server farms and housing in Chelan and visitors and I mean, it's the region, if you look at that pot, it's the tax revenue has done incredibly well.
Well, again, it makes me uncomfortable. I understand what you're trying to explain. That's the part of this that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. One wouldn't think that you'd have to have debt in order to get the 033. It's like, well, why shouldn't we just get out of debt and you should benefit us by giving us the 033 because we're good operators.
And is there no other way to write it that makes more sense?
There's no other way to make that happen unless they change the law, which they could. PFDs have not had great success in altering. They did get a couple years ago, I think the PFD 033 language lasted like 25 years, and some of the PFDs ahead of ours were already 10 years into their program, so they only had like 15 years left, and they did extend it to like 40 years. So the 033 can go through, I don't know, 2042 or I don't know, a lot longer than we're getting it. So yeah, it's the nature of those beasts.
On another area of the operations, where is there anything changed, or are we still the way we move and shuffle money around between accounts and whatever? But what's always been a concern is capital improvement fund.
Right.
does this agreement change anything there? Or there's still some mechanism whereby they have to put a certain amount into capital improvements or those kinds of
So
things?
part of this bonding, which isn't part of this agreement technically, but part of the bonding is we will put somewhere between $4 and $5 million into a capital reserve fund. So it will come out of this bonding with some money in the bank. They did get the shuttered venue money, so that will also be in the bank a little bit. And then this will give us a capital improvement fund. When we looked at it a number of years, when this thing first started, the council's desire to the PFD was 1 year's operations in the bank, which would be around $3 million, and $6 million in a capital replacement fund. This will get it most of the way there.
Can the 033 funds be used for capital improvement?
We can use it any way we want to, as long as there's outstanding debt.
Well, and there will always be a need for capital improvements.
Yeah,
because
that
the
building is
aging.
12 years old.
Yeah.
And so we've already, if we were doing so good saving for capital and the scoreboard went out. That's $800,000, right? Because it's the big electronic. So 2 years ago, we got a new scoreboard. And because we can't take on any debt, right? We couldn't even take payments over 4 years, right? We had no choice but to write an $800,000 check out of your $1.5 million reserve account. So just all the money we'd saved. And so, you know, our scariest part are like the chillers, right? If the chillers go, that's $2 million and you don't have any ice. So we've been like frantic for these chillers to keep going because we couldn't borrow money and we didn't have $2 million if the chillers went out. So this will fix that because we'll get to the bond market, we'll have enough money in the bank account that if the chillers go, we can replace them. The air conditioning units quit working, we can replace them. We can repair the roof. Building's in reasonably good condition overall. I think from the outside, it looks really
It looks
nice. The
great.
inside is, you know, we re-seal coated the pavement a few years ago. So we're sort of doing what we can. And so this is it's good for the public facility district. It's actually good for the community to know that we can get out of this debt pretty quickly and that we have money for capital if needed. All right, any questions of me? It's not often that I present. If not, I would entertain a motion and just either refer to the draft as presented tonight or in substantially the same form would be appreciated.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion for the City Council to authorize the mayor to approve the amended and restated interlocal agreement for the Greater Wenatchee Regional Events Center project in substantially the same form by and between the City of Wenatchee and the Greater Wenatchee Regional Events Center Public Facilities District and authorize the mayor's signature.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Esparza, second by Councilmember Harold, to authorize the mayor to approve the amended and restated interlocal agreement between the Greater Wenatchee Regional Events Center project in substantially the same form as presented tonight by and between the City of Wenatchee and the Greater Wenatchee Regional Events Public Facility District and authorize the mayor's signature. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Code Enforcement Board, who's doing that? Stephen?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We are this evening presenting resolution number 2021-31 that would appoint Amber Hallberg to the Code Enforcement Board. As stated in the agenda report, she made application and the board unanimously is recommending that she be appointed. And so we've included, again, the resolution and the board application materials for this candidate. Cliff tells me that if appointed, this would be the first time, I think he said 10 years, that we would have all 5 members of the Code Enforcement Board seated. So just for your consideration.
Good.
Better hurry up. For someone who's pursuing a master's degree in public administration to take on code enforcement is quite a jump for her. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Great.
And new to the city.
Yeah. Right, any questions for Stephen? If not, I entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I make a motion for the City Council to pass resolution number 2021-31 designating the appointment of Amber Hallberg to the Code Enforcement Board for a 2-year term ending December 31st, 2022.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Bailey, to adopt Resolution 2021-31, designating the appointment of Amber Hallberg to the Code Enforcement Board for a 2-year term ending December 31st, 2022. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
Thank Amber.
Alyssa, change order number 1.
Here they come.
Last one, right?
But we don't have to pay for this
Yeah,
one.
this is
This is
might be
the
the
one I
be-
can
this
live
might
with.
be the best one we're going to get. Go ahead, Alyssa.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Alyssa Schaefer, Facilities Manager for the Public Works Department. As you can see, the Wenatchee City Hall redevelopment project is underway with demolition about 80% complete. There are structural components being erected in the basement, and the work you see on the exterior of the building consists of PCB abatement, marble removal, and the demolition for 22 individual 18-foot tall windows. These windows will add exterior elevation appeal as well as bring light into the interior space. LocalTel, our condominium partner, recognizes the importance of these added windows and would like to install 3 matching windows along the east side of the building. These would align with the windows currently planned for the city in the same area. Excuse me. This will add to the exterior elevation aesthetics, which will benefit the building as a whole, and LocalTel will also gain natural light into the interior of their space. There is an efficiency and consistency benefit to both the city and LocalTel to have TW Clark Construction, the city's contractor, install these windows under the city's current contract, thus creating change order number 1 in the amount of $174,200 plus tax. The city and LocalTel have entered into a cost-sharing agreement similar to other agreements used on other city projects. LocalTel has agreed to reimburse the city for all costs incurred for the scope of work increase, including design and engineering expenses. It is our recommendation that the City Council approve the contract change order with TW Clark and authorize the mayor's signature.
These windows are expensive.
They're very expensive. There are 18 different trades associated with one window. So it's a lot of coordination.
And I didn't realize, I think it was Alyssa was telling me, there's actually 2 different sets of cinder block. So they're double deep. So you cut one from one side and one from the other, and they have to be identical, and then
You want them to line up.
steel put in, and asbestos removal, and there's a lot into these, so. I'm excited that LocalTel felt the desire to want to match us going down that side, and they've always wanted to, so good for them for deciding they wanted to get that done while we had contractors here, because it would have been greatly more expensive for them to do the same thing after all of our folks had left, so.
Get it all buttoned up.
Yeah.
So that's going to be along the west side?
There was a
East side.
spot, one of these
Is that
pictures
correct?
showed it.
Yeah, back here.
Yeah,
Had it
okay.
sort of wobbly in there, I saw it.
Yeah.
So I guess my only question would be, is it increase our timeline? Does it put more
It does
pressure?
not.
Okay.
We are in alignment with their current schedule, that the trades can move directly into their, LocalTel's area and work piggybacking on where they're.
So overall
Leaving out.
projects, and we got you here, overall projects going according to plan and on time and,
Correct.
Under
We're
budget.
on time. We're currently within budget. There is another change order in the works, just to keep you abreast.
one
So I will be
that we
back.
should be scared of, or one that's normal?
No,
Okay.
there are things that have come up, like plumbing's in a different location than was originally thought it to
Okay.
be. There were some modeling issues. That's our biggest one for.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just have some old building unknown conditions that we're
Right.
dealing with.
Good. So any questions for Alyssa? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move for City Council to approve the contract change order with TW Clark Construction LLC and authorize the mayor's signature.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Kulas to approve the contract change order with TW Clark Construction LLC and authorize the mayor's signature. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you.
All right, public hearing items. We have one public hearing item regarding our Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. So I see Stephen in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is still here. Brooklyn, when's your last day? Monday.
That's why I'm here.
Okay.
Steven's getting
Because you're learning.
I'm learning.
Getting
All
trained.
right.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so for purposes of our public hearing item, we'll first hear from staff. We'll ask questions of staff, and we'll then turn it over to the public for any action they may, or any hearing testimony, and then over to the council for any action. So Stephen in Brooklyn, it's all yours.
Good evening, Council of Brooklyn Holton Neighborhood and Community Services Coordinator. And tonight, we're bringing you guys the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. This plan is a requirement of the City of Wenatchee, as we are an entitlement community, meaning we get a grant amount from the federal government every year based on a formula. And we just recently adopted our 2020 to 2024 consolidated plan. And so this 2021 annual action plan is the second year in that consolidated plan to implement the goals that were set over a 5-year period. So the program every year is October 1 through September 30th. And so we adopt the plan at least by mid-August to be able to prepare and develop the documents ready for the upcoming plan. We have goals identified as expand development of housing and public amenities, enhance economic development, and support public services. We adopted these in the consolidated plan and just transfer them into each annual action plan to maintain consistency. This year, to reach those goals, we're looking at code enforcement with the City of Wenatchee and Lincoln Park improvements for the public facilities. And then Literacy Council, which through the Community Action Council provides tutoring for adults that have English as a second language, and it supports them looking for citizenship, employment, and education opportunities. And then supporting public services, our code enforcement department has a program where if individuals want to be in compliance with code, but aren't able to financially or support that in terms of personnel, we're able to provide that support. Support for the sleep center, the low barrier shelter. This would be right now considered a public service because that isn't fully developed in the design and what each budget line item is going to be needed for, what funding is going to support each budget line item. That might move up into goal number 1. And then Literacy Council is under both because it helps support individuals being able to access employment, but it is by definition a public service because it supports staff and operations of that whole program. This amount in your agenda packet, there's this first part, and then I have a second slide for some unallocated funding, but this initially is our recommendation. It's consistent with previous years and the way that we've kind of funded different projects, program administration and planning. That amount is determined based on a 20% cap. So every year we have our award. We can't spend more than 20% on non-project planning. This supports staff time and then any plans or anything that we do that's not consistent with a development project. The Wenatchee Code Enforcement supports a portion of their staff time. So any work that they do, especially with individuals who are low to moderate income, they're able to bill that time to this program. The Literacy Council, the $30,000, that falls in our public service, which is subject to 15% of our annual action, or our normal annual award. And so that's limited, but that helps to support a couple staff members to provide that tutoring service. The 1900 is that voluntary compliance support for households that aren't able to comply under their own resources. The 150,000 is for the Lincoln Park Improvement Project. And then the 323,000 651. That is our Community Development Block Grant COVID funding. That's our total amount that remains after we did our food assistance program and our business stabilization last year. And so we're looking to apply all of that funding towards the sleep center to support the design, analysis, and.
When you say sleep
construction of
center,
that.
we'll call that our low barrier shelter?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I was confused. I go, what's a sleep
Sorry,
center?
yeah, I don't know. That's been Glenn, and I've been calling it that. So I'm
Okay.
not sure if that's
All right.
transformed into a new name, but
Okay.
yes, should be the same thing.
Okay.
So that's just under 600,000 of funding to those projects that are consistent with what we've funded in the past in terms of public services and public facilities. The next slide, this one in your packet, there were 4 options provided for you guys. We have about 118,000 of funding that's unallocated. We had a few project considerations. The 15% cap that I mentioned under public services is not completely filled. Based on the previous slide, we still have about $5,000 available. During the 30-day comment period, we received a formal request from Cascade, which is the Community for Advancement of Family and Education, and they requested actually $30,000 to support 2 programs they have. They do tutoring for individuals who are non-English speaking that are youth, so youth individuals with English as a second language, and then also COVID response. And so because of the limited public services that we have, one of the options, or option 1 and 2, included both a recommendation of just reaching that 15% cap and funding their tutoring program, which is in line with what we've been doing with the Literacy Council. The Literacy Council focuses on adults, and this would allow us to focus on youth, so we kind of have that generational span. So that's one consideration as a funding option. If you were to fund that, that would leave about $113,000 for what we'd be recommending as public infrastructure, so sidewalks. There's 2 considerations around that, and one of them is to fund sidewalks that are complementary to the low barrier shelter sleep center to be able to help support the infrastructure on site at that facility. The other option for sidewalks would be to kind of bring it back to the public works and see where funding can be leveraged for any infrastructure projects they have planned in the next year. Since this funding does basically go through September of 2022, we'd be able to leverage funding or add funding to a project that they might have a grant for. Option 3 or 4 are just the same sidewalk considerations, just increased by $5,000 if you chose to not fund the cafe tutoring program. And then, so for the public hearing, we are required in our program to do at least 2 public hearings a year to allow for the community to comment on how we spend money and how we have spent money. This counts as one of those. And a notice was put into the Wenatchee World on July 13th, notifying the public, as well as email and also one-on-one conversations between myself and community members to let them know that that comment period was open and that this public hearing option was available. And as I mentioned earlier, Cafe, I did include it in your agenda packet, the email that they provided in response to that comment period. So with that, I can just turn it over to, if you have anything or anything to add.
Stephen, just smile. You're just, yeah.
I'm here for the ride.
He's moral support.
So any questions currently of Brooklyn or Stephen?
How would the options be chosen? You get the 4 different options of how to spend that.
Mm-hmm. You guys would choose that. So that's a.
Would that be at the time we adopted this, or how would that?
That would be today.
Be in about 30 seconds after
Yeah.
we take public comment.
Yep.
I'm included in the motion. And
Okay. And the only reason I'm asking about that is the way it read was kind of, it was tough to, there was 4 different options and a lot of the language looked very similar. And so.
I think we should do option 2, but I'll wait till I hear from the public.
But there's option 2 with infrastructure for this or this.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem, is each option looked like it had
My
2
thought,
options
the
within it.
reason I would choose 2 is 2 gives the Public Works Department the ability to find something that fits under CDBG.
Yep.
that could be the sleep center.
Yeah,
Or
that was going to be my
Or it could be
question.
some other
Yeah.
place,
It
right?
could be another geographic area
Area,
that
yes.
is lacking
Yeah.
in sidewalks for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
in-
think that gives us the flexibility to help pick and choose as opposed, that's why I would pick 2, because I'm okay with 5,000 going to cafe. And that 113 gives us the flexibility to choose where that goes.
And I would recommend referencing the options in your agenda packet, not on the slides. The slides are pretty summarized, but
Okay.
there is a lot of repetition in the options. They're kind of copy and pasted. Option 1 and 2 are really just, if you want to fund cafe in their tutoring program, that's 5,000. And then do you want to put the 113,000 after that is funded towards the sleep center, low barrier shelter, or the public works? And then kind of the same with those 2 options, just
Yeah.
adding the 5,000. Yeah. So whichever
But
option.
we could have something else,
You,
correct?
yeah, you could create, yeah, you could do that also. You could adjust the amounts or anything like that. And you can honestly, I mean, you have freedom to do that with anything I've recommended, so.
All right, so let me turn it over to any members of the audience. It was just to address the city council on this action item regarding the, our community development block grant annual action plan. Seeing no takers, I will turn over to the council for discussion or any action they may be willing to take.
Well, I guess I'd like to start with a question. Did anybody approach Parque Padrinos over at Medhal Park to see what they would like to see? And the reason why I ask this is because, you know, I'm on their Facebook page and their community engagement is just jaw-dropping to me when I see it, all the wonderful things that they're doing. And it's something, you know, that came about a couple of years ago, and what they've done with it is just, it's morphed into something incredible. It's a wonderful thing Parque Padrinos has been doing, and to be honest, I would hate to leave them out of, you know, potentially getting some funding to enhance what they're already doing.
Yeah, so I, when I mentioned some one-on-one conversations, Teresa Bendito and I, through a couple different projects and outreach, have regular conversations about funding and grant opportunities and, you know, different applications we can do. So her and I have touched base quite a few times on CDBG and how it works and different funding options if we have a project or a program. And I know right now they are formalizing themselves as a nonprofit. We would need them to have that status to be able to fund them. One thing that's great is that Cafe right now is acting as their fiscal agent. So if they wanted to do a program, and I know a lot of the youth that are involved with them are actually attending their tutoring program that Cafe has. So it is still benefiting some of the individuals that Parque Padrinos works with, but we're limited because of the federal funding to directly fund them without them having a fiscal agent. So Teresa and I have actually been in conversation. They're hoping to have their 501c3 completed this year. And with that, they would next year, you know, if they wanted to provide public comment and propose a project similar to the way the Cafe did, they would be eligible for funding.
So we couldn't fund them this year, but next year we could.
We would
Once
have
they
to
get
work
there.
with a fiscal agent
Yeah.
to then manage and pass through the funding, but next year you could. So we could fund them this year if that fiscal agency was set up with a different organization that wanted to sponsor them financially. But next year you'd be able to.
They're also getting a lot of money from Our Valley, Our Future and other organizations. And so I know that they're doing great work. They've got money that they're getting from other organizations as well. I mean, so we contribute to Our Valley, Our Future. Our Valley, Our Future gives money to Parque Padrinos. And so in some ways, we're already supporting their work. And
Yeah,
so
they've had a lot of partnerships with Cafe because Cafe has been able to function as their fiscal agent over the couple years. But yeah, Teresa and I have had quite a few conversations, and she's excited to have that nonprofit status because it'll open up a lot of doors for them for funding. Yeah.
Thank you.
So any other questions for Brooklyn or Stephen? Any thoughts on option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4 for the excess funding? Yeah.
I'm in agreement with option 2.
I think it gives us the most
Mhm.
flexibility, and I'm
Yeah.
okay supporting cafe.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
So the motion would be to adopt the plan, and then with excess funding, we
You
would
can just
adopt option,
reference which
option
option.
two. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm prone to go with option 2 also.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would entertain a motion if someone wanted to give that a shot.
Your Honor, I make a motion for the City Council to adopt the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Action Plan with the additional spending of option 2 selected, and authorize the mayor to sign associated assurances, certifications, and contracts necessary for implementing the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Hornby, to adopt the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan with the adoption of option 2, and authorize the mayor to sign associated assurances, certifications, contracts necessary for implementing the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brooklyn. So how many years have you worked for the city since Monday's your last day? 7?
Almost 8.
Almost 8?
December would be 8.
Well, thank you for your 8
We're gonna
great
miss
years,
you.
and
I'll miss you.
hopefully we'll see you around, and thanks for doing all you've done for our city and those you worked for, so. Great. Thanks, Brooklyn. Mayor's report. I have no idea. So yesterday, some of us from your city team, myself, Councilmember Harold, Laura, Glenn DeVries, Oliver Crane, Riley Cook, a police officer, went to Everett to visit their low barrier shelter. So Everett has obviously had some of the same issues we've had. They're a little further along. Their shelter, some of them went to, what city did you go to the night before?
Burlington.
Burlington, and we didn't go to that, but it's the company that's making the smaller shelters that we're thinking of using. I can't remember their name. So those shelters look great. The Everett one was both day and night shelter, so it was more living quarters. It wasn't just the night or the sleep center, it was an all-day one, which made it operate a little bit differently. I think some of the interesting things for me, we've talked to Moses Lake, and Moses Lake, is a sleep center. And they said, whatever you do, don't put power into those units. Just, that's the last thing you want to do. And the Everett people said, whatever you do, make sure you have power in those units. It's
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're getting a little bit of
Well,
mixed
whose
messages.
is working best?
We don't know. One's a night center and one's an all-day center. So they're sort of different. They're different animals, right? Because one's all day, you're there during the day, you're there at night. Ours is at night. So again,
And what was the two reasonings? Don't put power in there because they destroy it
they
from
destroy
the
it,
one,
and they cause
and
fire in it, and over there.
and the
they
other
say
one
it's
is put it in
heat and air
because-
conditioning, and it's their house. They're living there, right? It's more like they're there for 90 days straight and living in these little huts. So again, I just thought it was interesting in terms of the dynamics. So we're still learning all we can learn as we continue to move forward with our sleep center, if you will. And Glenn's been working with, on locations and that sort of stuff, so we're moving along with that. Transportation Council this morning, we allocated another $700,000 to our McKittrick Street project, so I was excited for that. We've already got some federal funding. What's that?
They're going to pay for the stuff.
I don't know. Jim wanted to know when McKittrick Street was going to be done, the interchange. Okay, yeah, I've heard that before. So so it was nice to get that. The other funding was some to Chelan County wanted to build a new road up by Totem Pole Road up in Manson with some sidewalks for school, and the school bus couldn't even get up the road in the wintertime. Douglas County got some stuff for Highway 28 in Cascade. I think Northern Fruit is anticipating a larger facility out there, and the highway wanted a roundabout for access, similar to the Stemilt one, not Stemilt one, McDougal's, excuse me.
Would
So-
that be at the same intersection as the entrance now currently there? It would just be directly across from that?
Well, it's where Cascade hits Highway 28, so I don't know how you,
It's Enterprise Drive or Contractor,
Yeah.
the southerly.
yeah. So that got some funding, and then Kashmir had a project to sort of connect the bridge to their town. There's a stretch in there that isn't funded that would get Kashmir some more sidewalks for the new bridge. There was a gap between where the city stuff ended and where this project ended, and this would sort of fill the gap. And so when I walked in this morning, we had nothing, and through some negotiations with some of our friends, we ended up with a little bit over $700,000 for McKittrick, which is good. That's already a federalized project anyhow, so having more federal money there was helpful. Next week, we've got a couple of groundbreakings. So the Pinnacle Prep is next Friday at noon. The Link is having quite a little event on Thursday, the 19th, sort of with some of our local elected officials and some folks from Murray and Cantwell staff regarding electric buses in Confluence Parkway and all the things that are important to make sure we get the last piece of those things funded. We did spend some time with our friends at Goodfellow Construction on Tuesday. Goodfellow has a long history of doing design build projects, mostly road work, not bridges, but we picked the brain of their design build expert who happens to work out of the Wenatchee office. So he was very helpful in terms of educating us on the process we have to go through to spend our federal money if we decide to do the design build approach, which we're still sort of thinking about. We do know that when the bridge gets built, the actual bridge over the Wenatchee River, that does need to be a design build, but the stuff that we've got funded, we could do design bid build if we wanted to. So we're still sort of kicking around the pluses. And at some point, we may have some sort of a presentation for you guys to think about in terms of sort of direction for us. But there's a lot going on, and I don't think the bill has passed to authorize the funding. We have not heard from USDOT in terms of a term sheet, so we're still a ways away from being able to spend money that would be reimbursable yet. But all of the NEPA stuff continues on. Finance Committee did agree to allow Rob and his team to hire another engineer. And at some point, we're going to need a number of engineers to work on this project in one form or another, whether it's pushing papers or designing or doing work. So we're in the process of trying to gear up for that. But once we get the term sheet signed, it's all reimbursable. So whether we hire 2 people or 20 people or consultants or whatever we do, the reimbursing will start when we get our term sheet from the feds, which we would expect before the end of the year.
Does the recently, well, it hasn't passed the Senate, but not the House yet on the
The infrastructure bill?
Yeah, so does it look like that there's going to be some money that obviously money's coming to the states, but how we access that to actually build Confluence, the bridge across the river?
Yeah, so I don't know if any of that will end up going that direction. We do know things like the Transportation Council would anticipate, this year we got $4.5 million, which is like 2 years of funding. So we expect to get maybe a $5 or $10 million one-time allocation that we would sort of arm wrestle over. Whether that would go to things such as preservation that Mr. Jammerman would like, or Confluence Parkway. At the end of the day, to finish Confluence Parkway, we need the state of Washington to pass a transportation bill that has $133 million for the remaining portions of Confluence Parkway that would also include the stuff at Wenatchee Landing. So there's really no other magic place to get it. We might be able to get a few million here, a few million there. There'll be a whole bunch of money for Link, for buses. There'll be a bunch of water stuff that I think the PUD's taken the lead on. I know they were excited about the $1 billion for the treaty, for the Columbia River Treaty to buy. Whatever they need to make the Canadian folks happy to get the treaty changed. And
Get something done.
yeah, so there's lots of good stuff in there. How much of it actually flows into our region? We'll be interested to see how that all sort of works its way through. But Link was pretty excited about what they thought they were going to get. And I know the Transportation Council will get another allocation of something. But I think that this next round has got to be funded by the state in some manner. And the Transportation Council has made it clear when Senator Hawkins has asked for a list of projects, we just tell him the same project. He goes, well, I want more. And I said, no, this is what you're going to get. This is what you're getting. It's Confluence Parkway, the remaining part of that, more improvements North Wenatchee Avenue, and that's what we're asking for. So we are at the top of the list for a while until we get through this round of, it'll be interesting to see.
Look, we didn't think we were ever gonna get anything from infra. That
Nope.
persistence paid off, man.
Nope.
So
Fourth-
I say just keep persisting.
Well, and good for the Transportation Council for continuing to say, these are our important projects, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes what happens is you say, listen, we need $133 million and we need this other project. And if you put, oh, and by the way, we need, $8 million for a roundabout in wherever, Leavenworth. Sometimes what gets funded is the $8 million, right, roundabout in Leavenworth, and that was the 7th thing on your list, but because it was on your list and someone liked it better, it got funded. And we've seen that happen before, where our number 1 and 2 and 3 projects didn't get funded, but number 9 on someone's list was somebody's favorite, and it did get funded. And so the Transportation Council has been clear about, we are not putting anything else on our list other than the ones we want to get funded. And good for the Transportation Council for holding to that, because it would have been really easy to peel out and do something else. Laura, anything else I'm supposed to remember?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay. Council members, anything for the good of the order?
It was a great trip yesterday and the day before. And when we were touring the facility in Everett, we met one of the residents there. She was quite the inspiration. I talked to her privately, and she had spent the past 6 years on the streets and experienced a lot of abuse and hard times. And she actually broke down and cried. But she's really taken a positive attitude and is using this opportunity to move her life forward, and is really excited about it and appreciative. And
Yeah, I noticed you two talking a little bit.
yeah, she really touched my heart.
Yeah.
And, I want to do the same for our community.
Yeah, good. And they are having some successes. And so
Yes,
we
they
did
are.
meet with Mayor Franklin and their chief of police and others to sort of get a idea how they got started and what their issues were. And so I think we're learning and anxious to get something up and going. So next week we have a work session.
Yes, we have a work session, and we are going to talk about the interlocal, so the homeless interlocal with the city of East Wenatchee.
Yep.
We are also talking about Riverfront Master Plan, and then an update on the arts budget, the arts fund that we have. So full agenda, exciting stuff.
Okay.
Your Honor, I have worked it out to be here, but I will be late.
Okay.
I will probably miss the presentations by Dave Erickson,
Okay.
but I should be here for the interlocal agreement.
Okay. Perfect. Anything else? All right. If not, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.